Welcome back to Explaining Everything, the channel where we tune in, turn it up, and break down the science hiding in the signals we hear every day. Today's question comes from one of our awesome viewers, J4Js22. Thanks for transmitting this awesome idea our way, Jay. You asked, what makes AM and FM radio different? Classic question, because if you've ever flipped through your car radio and thought, why does one station sound crispy clear and another sound like it's coming from inside a soup can? You've already heard the difference. But what's going on behind those dials? And why did we end up with two major types of radio in the first place? Stick around as we crank the frequency and break it all down, right here on Explaining Everything. Before we jump into AM versus FM, let's cover the basics. What is radio, really? Radio is a type of electromagnetic wave that carries sound by encoding it as a signal and transmitting it through the air. A transmitter sends that signal out, and a receiver, like your car radio, catches it and turns it into sound again. It's like invisible mail flying through the sky at the speed of light, carrying songs, voices, and news headlines. The key to making radio work is modulation, a process that lets us ride sound waves on top of a radio frequency. That's where AM, amplitude modulation, and FM, frequency modulation, come in. They both send the same message. They just ride different roller coasters to get there. And just like different roller coasters, the experience, the speed, smoothness, and sound feels completely different depending on which one you're on. Let's start with AM radio, the older of the two. AM stands for amplitude modulation, which means it changes the height, amplitude, of the wave to carry sound, while the frequency stays the same. It's simple and effective, and because of its long wavelengths, AM signals can travel super far, especially at night when they bounce off the atmosphere. That's why you can often pick up an AM station from another city or state. It's great for things like talk radio, sports, and news, where clarity isn't as critical as coverage. But the downside? AM is much more prone to static and interference from lightning, engines, and even hair dryers. It's the price you pay for distance. A long reach, but with a lot more noise tagging along for the ride. Now let's talk about FM radio, aka the cleaner, crisper sounding cousin. FM stands for frequency modulation, where the frequency of the wave changes while the amplitude stays steady. That makes FM signals much more resistant to noise and static. This is why FM is preferred for music. It delivers better sound quality with more detail and less fuzz. FM stations don't travel as far as AM stations since they use shorter wavelengths, but they're more stable within their coverage zone. They also require line of sight, so mountains or tall buildings can block them. But when it comes to clarity and stereo sound, FM wins the face-off, hands down. It's like comparing a phone call on speakerphone to one with noise-canceling headphones and HD audio. So, if both AM and FM carry sound, why do they sound so different? It all comes down to bandwidth. FM signals use a wider bandwidth, which allows for higher sound fidelity and stereo channels. AM, on the other hand, is narrowband, limited to lower audio frequencies. That's why AM often sounds flat or muffled, while FM can give you booming bass and shimmering highs. The method of modulation also matters. AM is more affected by noise because anything that messes with the amplitude messes with your signal. With FM, interference has to match the signal's frequency changes to be noticed, and most noise doesn't. So while AM is the grandparent of radio, FM is the cool, noise-canceling teenager with better headphones. Think of AM as sketching with a pencil. FM is painting in full color with a high-definition brush. You might think radio's old school, but AM and FM are still going strong and evolving. AM is still popular for news, sports, and talk shows, especially in rural areas where its long reach is a big deal. FM dominates music and entertainment, especially in cities and cars. And now we've got HD radio, internet radio, satellite, and streaming apps. But AM and FM are still the backbone of local broadcasting. Digital tuners help clean up the signal, and many stations now simulcast both over the air and online. You'll even find AM and FM working alongside digital platforms in hybrid dashboards. So even as radio evolves, the old school signals are still carrying the beat, one frequency at a time. It's not about choosing sides anymore. It's about knowing which tool is best for the job in a world where both still matter. So, what makes AM and FM radio different? It all comes down to how the sound is carried. AM adjusts the wave's height and FM tweaks its speed. One goes the distance, the other goes for quality. AM might get crackly, but it's a reliable traveler. FM might be picky about terrain, but it sounds smoother when it counts. And in a world full of digital options, AM and FM are still humming along, proving that sometimes the classics never stop broadcasting. Whether you're tuned in for traffic reports, top 40 hits, or late-night call-in shows, there's a little bit of wave-riding history behind every note. And as long as there are antennas and listeners, the radio face-off continues. Not as rivals, but as timeless teammates. If you like this video, hit that like button and subscribe. Also, if you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for tuning in, and join us next time here in the channel that answers all the why, what, who, where, and how questions you've always wondered about, here on Explaining Everything.